Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Gaia Education's webinar series with a focus on sustainable development and design. My name is Giovanni Charlo. I am the Chair of Management at Gaia Education, and I'm your host for this online experience, which I am sure will be of great value as we explore the many issues related to the ED curriculum developed by Gaia Education and its founders, also known as the GEES, the Global Eco-Village Educators for a Sustainable Earth. We are honored to have today Paola Vidulich with us. She is a member of Gaia Education's management team, and she also manages our web presence and edits the GEES information newsletter, which I'm sure many of you receive and have enjoyed. Her diverse experience includes participation in the Olympic Games and careers in programming, project management, and advertising industry. Paola unplugged from corporate culture in 2008 and has since traveled extensively inwardly and outwardly, living in Findhorn between working and grassroots contemplative education organizations. She's involved in many education for sustainable development in Africa and in Asia, was born in South Africa, currently resides in Portland, USA, completing a Master's of Arts degree in process-oriented psychology at the Process Institute. So social issues of spirituality, ecology, and social relationships are some of the most urgent issues of our times. And as we enter into the age of sustainability and attempt to live within the Earth's carrying capacity, we cannot afford to ignore the need to heal and protect the Earth's life-giving systems. Social awareness and community development play a big part in that story. So today's topic is part of the social and worldview dimensions of the EDE curriculum. And we bring it to you as a complement to course materials offered worldwide. This webinar is made possible also by the generous donation of contributors from around the world. There on the slides, you see some of our publications, which you can download from our website. The curriculum is a free download, and the other two are manuals and guides for implementing the curriculum. I was saying that this webinar is made possible by generous donations from our many supporters, so please consider making a contribution to make other programs of this kind possible by visiting our website's donation page. I would like to point out that you can find a downloadable version of the full curriculum. I already actually mentioned that here in this slide, along with our many publications at GaiaEducation.net. And I imagine that many of you have already visited those pages and are familiar with this. Gaia Education certified courses are offered throughout the world and also online. We have courses online in Spanish, Portuguese, and in English. If you would like to sign up for one of those courses, please visit our website and you'll find them there. You'll find registration and all information. So there's a little bit of a little housekeeping that I need to mention here. You will have audio and video on your screen. So you will see video like the slides and the presenters. If you downloaded the Fuse application or if you are joining us online. Otherwise, you can call in from your telephone at the number that was provided in the registration information. You can use the chat box in the Fuse screen to post your questions at the end of the presentation. However, only the presenters will respond to those questions, so they will not be chatting among participants. It would be best if you have any other applications closed on your computer while you attend this webinar. And the webinar will be recorded, is being recorded, and will be available for download later. We will inform you by email after we post it in our SlideShare site. So without further ado, I now give you Paola Vidulich. So welcome, Paola. Let me see if I can get you on. There you are. And perhaps you want to turn on your video so we can see you. There is Paola. Very good.
Yeah.
And you take it. Thank you, Paola.
Great. Thank you, Gio. And thank you to everyone that is present. I first just want to say, Gio, it's an honor for me to be sitting here and doing this webinar with you, someone who has forged so much of the social dimension of the curricula, the EDE curricula. So thank you for inviting me to do this presentation. Then just before I actually go into the presentation, I'd like to say a little bit about myself. I did the Thai EDE in 2010, and it was during this EDE that I actually discovered Processwork. My journey since that EDE and with Processwork has brought me into encountering indigenous folk from all over the world. It's deepened my knowing and my understanding of stories from new science, and I've been inspired by a lot of contemporary thinkers and wisdom that is coming out. So this presentation really draws together my learnings over the last 7 years, particularly. And I'm drawing together all of these ideas, all of these experiences, and all of this knowledge. And at the same time, I'm a student of Processwork. I've been studying Processwork informally since 2010 and have been engaged in the master's program at the Processwork Institute since 2013. So just to give you a grounding in that before I actually start. I'm now going to turn off my video so that we can focus on the presentation, and I'll turn it back on at a later point. Okay, so expanding time towards awareness-oriented societies. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. Back to the beginning. Sorry about that. Okay, I've got to say this is quite strange for me. I'm used to talking and presenting and facilitating in front of people. This is the first webinar that I'm doing. It's a little bit unnerving in a way, not having this immediate response and being able to see you all, but I'm sure I'll get through it. Okay, the times are urgent. We are facing multiple converging crises, from economic crises to human-made environmental disasters, from tragically violent identity and ideology-based conflicts to genocide and natural disasters, from escalating resource depletion to the oppression of indigenous people and cultures. Solutions that appear to have worked for decades are failing, and while some of us are fortunate to have found ways of life that serve our humanity, many have run out of answers. While mainstream schooling has taught us many good skills, it generally has been convergent in nature. That is, leading us to known solutions and answers, rather than encouraging our imagination and our creativity, our dreaming nature. It has largely resulted in a very distant relationship, if any, with the earth and our deeper natures. It has generally marginalized our feelings, our personal power, and conflict, while at the same time not giving us skills to work with our personal power and celebrate the power of our power and the power of those around us. We are facing a crisis in our ways of knowing, and we are facing crises in our ways of meaning creation. For centuries of mainstream schooling, our native ways of knowing and of being alive and creating meaning have disintegrated. For folk, especially in more Western countries, intergenerational learning has stopped. By intergenerational learning, I mean learning between the young and the old. Whereas once we were able to learn from our grandparents, we are now seldom interacting with them and harvesting their wisdom. When it comes to our native ways of learning and wisdom, it is worse still. Our grandparents, much less our parents, have access to knowledge of this. So how do we re-access our native ways of knowing? How do we access and re-enliven our ways of being alive? How do we access the intelligence of Gaia and the intelligence of individual and collective wisdom to co-evolve through these crises with everything going on around us? How do we access what we don't know about ourselves? The times are indeed urgent and they are challenging. Globally, we are facing a variety of social epidemics. Hopelessness, fear, inner conflict often rages deeply and violently, just as deeply and violently as outer conflict. Depression, stress, and suicide are common all over the globe. I had the fortunate opportunity of meeting Bayo Akomolafe during the New Story Summit in Findhorn and again at the Economics of Happiness conference here in Portland. He's a clinical psychologist and he came into close contact with the Nigerian shamans, and it brought him from going in this more Western university educated mindset, and it brought him back into his roots, the roots and the nature of his people. And he tells the story when he was having conversations with these Nigerian shamans, and they said the times are urgent, let's slow down. But this, they were not necessarily meaning moving slower or thinking slower or driving or walking slower. For them, slowing down was a function of awareness. So what do we mean by awareness? In my experience with process work, I've noticed that it has the capacity to firstly slow down time, then to stop time, and then to expand time into ways and directions that have been unpredictable. I find this super, super exciting because when we're having a look at all of these multiple crises and we're able to stop in a moment using our awareness, when we're able to engage with things that are unknown in a moment, we're suddenly able to expand time in unknown and unpredictable directions. And this is kind of like the butterfly effect, where we're actually changing things at a very fundamental focal point within us, with small shifts, small noticings of awareness and things within us and around us. And we're suddenly shifting into these unknown directions, and the whole landscape of where we seem to be going as humanity with all of these crises shifts, and we're expanding into unknown territory. So let me say a little bit more about process work. Process work is an awareness paradigm and practice which is based largely on the following of signals. It's been developed over the last 30 years, developed, evolved, co-created through actually using it and actually working with what has been discovered. The main founder behind it is Arnold Mundell, who was trained as a physicist and then became a Jungian analyst. So the roots of process work include Jungian psychology, quantum physics, Taoism, and your more earth-based psychologies of Aboriginal and shamanic wisdom. It's been applied in settings from individual, couple, and family therapy to coaching, organizational work, group conflicts, medicine, art, coma work, political settings. It's also been applied to people who are going through so-called psychotic states. In process work, we refer to these as extreme or altered states. It is also continually evolving theory and practice. So it hasn't come to a point where it's just simply stopped. It's continually evolving as both a theory and a practice. To state simply, process work is about following nature. The deeper democracy of interbeing, mainstream perceptions of reality. So what is reality? The majority of people view reality confining it to that which we can see and that which the majority accepts as normal. This includes normal appearances, normal sexual behavior, normal relationship orientations, and normal feelings. Anything outside of that is simply not real. Our primary ways of knowing and gaining knowledge are generally through academic and intellectual pursuits. From a process-oriented perspective, reality is multidimensional. The first level of reality we call consensus reality. It is what we commonly engage with, what we see, hear, touch, taste. It includes the roles we commonly know and associate with, like mother, father, daughter, peer, pastor, teacher, colleague. It's what we know to be objectively out there, the facts, that which is evidence-based and measurable. The second level is dreamland. This level refers to how we subjectively experience the world, our feelings, our day and nighttime dreams, our fantasies about the future and where we want to be going. It includes our sometimes non-rational and non-cognitive experiences. The essence level includes those moments and experiences when we sometimes feel a oneness, a connectedness to everything else. I'm sure many of you have experienced this. It happens during meditation, a walk in nature, sometimes while making love, maybe often while making love, through substance use, prayer, and even physical activity like dancing or sport. Depending on your spiritual orientation, you may call this God's mind, or Great Spirit, or Gaia. Arnold Mandel often refers to it interchangeably as either system mind, quantum mind, or process mind. A process work approach strives to honor all these diverse experiences in all these different levels, the feelings, the roles, the people. It values neither one level above the other level, neither one experience above the other experience. Whether we are working by ourselves as inner work, or with a friend or a partner, or in small or large groups, these levels are always present. Present and waiting to be experienced, to be tapped into, to be opened into, and to be traveled through. This honoring and being aware of all the diversity within ourselves and within others is referred to as deep democracy. So how does this look within ourselves? I'm going to give an example here from personal experience as I was working on this presentation. So sitting together to pull all of this from the last 7 years of my life into this presentation. This is my consensus reality in the moment, needing to finish and complete this presentation. At the same time, I have a critical voice inside me saying, no, do this, or rather do that. No, forget this and add that. But I'm constrained for time, and I'm trying to make this presentation as clear and as simple as possible to convey all my excitement about this to you, the audience, so that you can feel and utilize the gifts in it. The voice that is critical is like in a rush, and it wants to create all of this and get it out, and it wants to do it perfectly and precisely, and it's saying, no, 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 do this, do that. I'm feeling stressed, super stressed. So this is my dreamland experience, holding me back from completing a task in consensus reality. So what I did is I stopped. I'm going through all of this and my heart is pounding, and I stop and I take a deep breath and I notice what is happening inside me. I notice all these conflicting voices. One voice is keep it simple. The other voice, it's too complex. How can I keep it simple? There is also pressure to succeed, the pressure to wanting to do a really good job so that you, the audience, can appreciate it. I decide first to work on the voices of wanting to keep it simple and the other voice of the complexity. I notice that behind each voice is the desire to create something that will bring a different way of facing the multiple crises that we are facing, a way that liberates us and makes us feel alive rather than dropping us into hopelessness and depression. Wow, okay, so I'm noticing something here. I'm noticing that between these conflicting voices in myself, there is a united experience. And this is an essence level experience, a desire to liberate and make us feel alive. It connects both of these voices. As I notice this, I automatically take a deep breath. The crisis that I am facing now in the moment of trying to create this presentation is a crisis being faced in the world out there. I'm pressurized for time and I need a solution, but I don't know how. Simply becoming aware of this, I experience another layer of relief from my inner conflict. This is perfect. I'm in a place of essence level and I'm experiencing myself as part of the dreamland field of this whole presentation. and part of the dreaming field of the whole world. It brings me relief because I know I am now exactly on the right pulse of creation here. I am not alone. I recall the main message from the presentation, slowing down. So this is what I've been doing. I've been slowing down. I suddenly get an image of a forest that I go walking in regularly. Forgetting the task that I need to complete, I take a moment here and I really stop and I connect with this forest. I bring it up in my mind's eye. It's an old growth forest, and I go there. I feel the silence. I feel the spaciousness. I feel the aliveness and it breathing around me. I see a stream that runs through it and recall the stream of life. As I go further and further in and connect with the forest, I start becoming the forest. And I'm realizing that this is part of why I want to present this, is because I feel this is something important for the forest, that is important for the sustainability of Gaia. So now being this forest, from this place and feeling this forest, I view what is happening in me, this conflict in me from this forest. And I review these things in consensus, reality, and dreamland. And as the forest, I speak to myself. And the voice that comes through is trust yourself and trust the audience. Go with the flow and the flow of life. With this in mind, I stop and I continue working on my presentation, but I'm suddenly feeling calmer. I'm no longer experiencing the conflict that was raging inside me. I feel I'm at ease with what is happening. So a few things that I want to point out about this example. The first is that, yes, this example is saying something about me and my process. The second is that what I was going through is reflected in the message and the challenge that I was facing in the project of completing this presentation. The times are urgent. We need to slow down, use your awareness and tap into a deeper dreaming level. So what I was experiencing internally, the challenge, was the same as the challenge that I was aiming to resolve and talk about in my project. The second thing that I want to bring up is that in the same way that it was reflected in the project, what I was experiencing internally is reflected out in the world today. The challenge that people are facing the world over and the need to find a solution. And then it also reflected my connection with Gaia, with the earth, and the challenge that the earth is facing, and the crises that the earth is facing. So this illustrates something over here, something that there's a dreaming field around us, that what I'm experiencing internally is also being experienced externally outside of me. There's an ancient Hermetic principle that speaks to this. The principle is as above, so below. And it points to wisdom, an ancient wisdom, that whatever is happening within us is also happening outside of us. So as I said previously, all of these levels are present all of the time for each of us: consensus, reality, dreamland, and essence level. These levels are also all interconnected and influence each other. Each individual, each relationship, each group has these levels present for them. Maintaining an awareness of the diversity of roles, people, and perspectives on each level is really important in bringing awareness to the totality of our beings. On consensus reality, having this awareness includes noticing ages, genders, races, sexual orientation and gender orientation, religious, economic backgrounds, jobs, and abilities. On a dreamland level, having an awareness includes noticing worldviews, belief systems, cultures, feelings, emotions, and dreams, dreamlike experiences, and our ancestors. It is also noticing what is being spoken about but not present. For example, for me right now in this presentation, I'm looking outside and there's the trees, there's earth, there's Gaia. This is present for me. On an essence level, noticing our deep experiences and our humanness, our interconnectedness and our oneness. Noticing and maintaining an awareness of all the diversity and complexity present has the potential to welcome in layers of depth and richness which would otherwise not be present. Noticing the levels we or others are in and bringing awareness to this can in and of itself alleviate tension and invite a depth of intimacy not previously present. Often conflict happens when people engage with each other from different levels. For instance, I'm sure you will all have had experiences where a boss or a person in authority is coming at you, speaking about the need to get the job done and react and argue that they're arguing facts and figures. You, on the other hand, as an employee or as somebody that's in less of a position of authority, may be feeling disempowered, and you might land up fighting angrily back or simply being unable to defend your work. Jan Dawkin, who is another Processwork and has years and years of experience, a fantastic facilitator, eloquently states that stepping beyond the factual world and the limitations of the rational mind is a diversity issue. When we enforce our realities on others, especially when we are in a position of power, it produces and escalates conflict dramatically. Stated in another way, Arnold Medell speaks about humankind's current ignoring of the dreaming levels of reality as an undiagnosed global epidemic. On a dreaming level, I've been contemplating this and thinking about how diversity is endangered out there. We have endangered species, we have species that have already gone extinct, and how this is mirrored inside ourselves as human beings, how we are not always honoring the diversity of voices and experiences within ourselves on consensus reality, on dreamland, on essence level. We're not always honoring the diversity present in the groups we are with, not always honoring minority and marginalized voices. So using the Processwork paradigm encourages us to re-engage all of these levels, all of the dreaming levels, from a perspective that especially appeals to those who have gone through and being surrounded by systems and cultures which have forgotten how to do this. Going on to the next slide. This is a quote from a process worker called Joe Goodbread. He has a fantastic book. He's actually got a number of books, but this quote is specifically from a book, Living on the Edge. When I'm on the margin of society, I will be deprived of the greatest power of all, the power to say what is real and what is not. And this is really fundamental for me. I think that we all globally, power is a big thing, and we look at power, we shy away from power, we fear power, we see power in the way power is portrayed in certain ways. But seldom do we really have a look at the ultimate kind of power is the power to define reality. I'm thinking here about centuries and centuries of patriarchy, the effect that that had not only on women, but on men, defining how things should look, how strength should look, and marginalizing our more feeling, intuitive, non-rational ways of being alive. It was very disempowering for many people and continues to be disempowering. So the deeper democracy of interbeing. Interbeing, so what does that word mean? It comes from a Vietnamese term. I'm not sure how one would pronounce this in Vietnamese, but tip hen. Tip hen means being in touch with or continuing. That's what tip means. And hen means realizing and making it here and now. Interbeing is a translation of this term coined by the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Charles Einstein, in one of his books, also speaks about interbeing quite extensively. He speaks about us being inseparate, interbeing being inseparate from the universe. Our being partakes in the being of everyone and everything else. I like to think of interbeing as a verb, an act of doing, a way of being with the world around us. When I slip back into that forest, when I go back there, rather than viewing the trees as trees that are living creatures, and actually standing in their presence as beings with multiple layers of reality, It completely shifts my perspective. It brings me so much closer to that tree, to its breath, to its exhalation as I inhale and breathe it in. So all the layers of reality are present with every creature, whether it's a bird, a cat, a tree, regardless of who you are and how you look. We all have these layers of reality. We all have a whole being that is surrounded us, and it's not limited to simply our physical nature. Becoming aware of our layers of reality, our consensus reality, our dreamland layer, our essence level, we start dipping into the dreaming field of Gaia and the dreaming field of everything around us. It's a really deep focal connection point, and for me, becoming aware of these layers and working and moving and thinking from these layers, being from these layers, feeling from these layers, I'm coming into deep contact with the nature and the beings of everything around me. I'm coming into deep contact with Gaia, and I'm really experiencing it in my conscious mind. I'm not having to go into meditation to access this. I'm able to do it as I'm sitting here, as I'm being here, surrounded by beautiful orchids and plants. These are beings that are surrounding me, and their presence is informing me, supporting me, and I can engage with them. This, for me, is the deeper democracy of interbeing. It's not simply about the human being, but about all beings, and embracing the diversity of all beings. I'm going on to the next concept here, which is a dream body awareness. Freud, Jung, and depth psychology popularized the notion of each individual having a conscious and an unconscious. To put simply, conscious is that which is known within ourselves, and unconscious is that which is unknown within ourselves. Jung extended the idea of our personal conscious and unconscious to a collective conscious and unconscious, i.e., the consciousness and unconsciousness of groups and of the world. Jung also used dreams to tap into the unconscious. He viewed dreams as the way in which the unconscious communicates with us. And by unfolding and going into dreams, we could start tapping into parts of our unconscious and bring them into our whole personality. The beauty of dreams is that it's a birthright. I want to say that again, it's a birthright. It is accessible to each and every single one of us. We all have dreams. We're born with dreams. It's like this fundamental way of being that is with us present and enables us to travel into parts of ourselves that are unknown. And taking it a step further, bringing in the concepts of interbeing, it enables us to travel into the spaces in which we connect with other beings around us, with other human beings, and with nature. With Arnold Mandel's work, what he discovered in the very early days, as I mentioned earlier, he was a Jungian analyst. He discovered in working with his clients that the nighttime dreams that people were having were also reflected in their physical symptoms. So I want to say that again because it's quite profound. Our nighttime dreams, the way our unconsciousness expresses itself through our nighttime dreams, is also reflected in our physical symptoms as well as other human phenomena. The Processwork was developed again over 30 years, and there's been so much research and application that has gone into this. And discovering this connection has brought us into a place where we can actually start tapping into those parts of ourselves in groups, those parts of ourselves individually, those parts of nature and the unknown. We can start tapping into these unknown things in our conscious awake hours. So the dream body is defined as a dreamlike unified field that gives expression to dreams and physical symptoms. It includes our nighttime dreams, body sensations, symptoms, things that we experience in relationships, disturbances in relationships, disturbances in groups, things that we experience in the outside world. Each person has a dream body, and each relationship has a dream body. And we can become aware of this dream body through its signals and the channels in which these signals appear. So here we have a human being, and I'm just trying to give you an overall picture of how this dream field may look. And again, I want to say each person has a dream body, each relationship has a dream body, each group has a dream body, and yes, Gaia, the earth, the world, also has a dream body. Okay, so the dream body includes all our different layers and levels of experience: consensus, reality, dreamland, and the essence level. So how does it communicate with us, this dream body? How can we become aware of it in our conscious everyday life? So the dream body communicates with us through the language of signals, and signals are communicated through a variety of channels. So Processwork is seated in the art and science of tracking and following these signals, the footsteps of the dream body. I said earlier that Processwork, simply stated, is about following nature. The dream body is an intrinsic part of our nature. In fact, it contains the sum of our nature and more, because it connects us to the nature of all around us. To become aware of nature is to become aware of the process and the flow of signals through the dream body. I should also just for a moment say something more about Processwork and the dream body, perhaps something a little more grounded. Let me first just say something more about Processwork. Firstly, it's non-pathologizing. What I mean by that is that it views conflict, illness, and other disturbances as veritable gold mines, which contain gems of wisdom that we can step into to further gain access to our wholeness. So rather than avoiding conflicts and avoiding disturbances and like taking medication to just get over things, we're invited to step into this. If you're experiencing resistance from your community, resistance to ideas that you want to present, this is great. Rather than avoiding this resistance or fighting this resistance, what is inside the know of those people around you? What are the marginal minority voices that need to come forward? What wisdom do others have that can bring you and your ideas to a fuller completion? Processwork is non-pathologizing. Secondly, Processwork believes in our own built-in capacity to heal ourselves, and this is what we are constantly trying to do. Conflict, illness, and disturbance show up to help guide us to this wisdom. The dream body, and this is the same for groups and people, contains this wisdom and will communicate with us through our dreams. If we miss the message in the dream, in a nighttime dream, the dream body recycles the message, and it will possibly show up in a body symptom in the proprioceptive channel, or a relationship disturbance in the relationship channel. In a group, you will have noticed how certain themes and conflicts recycle. This is often because while some things may have been resolved in consensus reality, undercurrents on the dreamland level have not been resolved. Before I go on here, I should also add a footnote that if your process is to see a doctor to solve an illness, or if your process to have a glass of wine, or perhaps 3 glasses of wine to alleviate something that is disturbing you, this is part of your process. As stated earlier, Processwork is non-pathologizing. It's about following you and believing in the totality of the wisdom of your experience in this world. So let me speak more about these channels and exploring signals. The audio channel. The audio channel includes everything we do and don't say and how we say it. It's the linguistic and paralinguistic signals that come up in how we talk. It's also about what we hear, music, anything that we hear with our ears or that we hear in our imagination. It includes the tone and the rhythm with which we speak. The visual channel is anything that we see in our eyes, and it includes what we see in our imagination, visions, nighttime and daytime dreams, and fantasies. The world channel is a collective and global social or political events that influence us. It also includes synchronicity. So that famous idea of you having a conversation and come to a profound insight and suddenly a painting falls off the wall. How did that happen? We call this synchronicity. It's something that happens in the outside world in synchronicity to what is going on in our experience, and either affirms it or brings us a message about our experience. So having an awareness of what is happening around us in the world can help bring us into these synchronistic moments and deepen our experience of what is going on. The movement channel is pretty self-explanatory. It includes our smallest and biggest movements, such as a hand movement or a subtle tapping of the foot or a sudden flutter in our eyes. It also includes our body language. The proprioceptive channel include body symptoms like headaches, an aching belly, or nausea. It includes illness. It includes other sensations like feeling hot or cold, or a tingling feeling, or shivers running up your spine. And then it includes more affable feelings of our inner world. The relationship channel includes experiences that are communicated to us through or felt in relationship to each other. And I want to say here that human beings and creatures are incredibly signal-based. And to lesser and greater degrees, we all already have an awareness of these signals. We all already have an awareness of these channels. We all are already reacting to and acting through these channels. So there's nothing really new here. What is new is that as we shift our attention and become aware of signals, we start tapping into things that are unknown. By noticing these signals, we start tapping into things, we start slowing down time. We can start exploring more about these signals. Often when signals go unnoticed, we may experience a sudden mood shift for no explained reason, or we may find someone irritating or super annoying for no given reason. By shifting our attention to become aware of what is not being said or what is happening in movements, such as a clenched fist while someone is speaking about being really happy, we can come into the space of slowing down time, stopping, and then expanding into different directions. You can say to someone, hey, so you're talking about being really happy, but I see you've got a really tightly clenched fist over there. What is happening for you? Or somebody talking about thinking with their head and pointing to their head and like all of these thoughts, but where they're really pointing is not their head, they're pointing to their middle eye, their seventh chakra area. And they're actually really referring to intuition and a different way of knowing. And by noticing this and naming it, we can suddenly explore and expand on what they mean by knowing. And what does that really mean? And how does it look about that? So, as I was saying earlier, all of these different levels of reality are present all of the time. We've got our dream body that is present all of the time. I want to give an example now, just to help ground this information of the dreaming body. And it's an example of a piece of relationship work I did with a partner. I'm going to put my video on for a moment over here because you may want to look at me while I tell the story. Hi, everyone. So in this relationship, my partner and I were experiencing conflict and we were really battling to resolve the conflict. So what we did is we sat down and we started talking. And as we were talking, kind of like the conflict was escalating and present in the background. And I suddenly became aware of this feeling that I had up and down the sides of my spine. I also just want to say that the partner that I was working with is also studying Processwork. So I named that I was having this sensation going up and down the back of my spine, and I stopped and took a moment to explore it. So what I did was, it felt kind of like the wings of an eagle spreading, and I started making this motion of the wings of an eagle spreading. And as I felt more into the movements, I realized, well, it wasn't really like the wings of an eagle spreading. It was more like a cobra that was coming up with its hood flared. And as soon as I did this and named this, my partner who was sitting across-side me went into this motion like this, as if he was a flute player busy enticing the cobra. Of course, this immediately made me angry. And I was like, why on earth would you do this now? We've got conflict going on, and here you are enticing me and, teasing me in the moment. It's really making me angry. So we started unfolding this, and it turned out that part of the conflict that we were facing was that he was feeling that I was disrespecting him, that it was a feeling that he was marginalizing and shifting aside and putting in the background. And we unfolded it further, and I suddenly became aware of how I was behaving and the behavior that was hurting him and making him feel this way. So just to go into and break this experience down a little bit, we had a conflict that was going on. And I had a sensation that I started experiencing down the back of my spine. This is the proprioceptive channel. I then went in and I wanted to explore this experience in the proprioceptive channel, and I explored it by making it bigger, by unfolding it, and by acting it out through my body. First it was an eagle, then it became a cobra. My partner sitting across me, he immediately reacted in the movement channel as well as the guy that was playing the flute and enticing the cobra. And the point I'm making over here is that in this conversation that we're having, we became aware, firstly, of the signals that were happening in our dream body, both our dream body that was around us and our individual dream body, by bringing awareness to it in a way that was non-rational, that was something that was non-cognitive. And we started exploring this non-rationally in the movement channel. We started dipping into something deep and unknown in our relationship. So let me just, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put my video off for a moment over here again. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I was exploring signals in the proprioceptive channel. The relationship channel was alive between us. I then explored the signals in the movement channel, so really making them bigger. And that is something that you can always do with any signals that you experience in one area. You can expand them, or what we call amplify them, to bring more awareness to them. Often these signals are so subtle, and especially as we're learning to hone our awareness and become more aware of things that are unknown to us, it's really difficult to grab hold of them and put words on them. So expanding them into different channels, into movements, into some way that feels right to give expression to these signals, helps us explore them further. Coming to the example that I gave right in the beginning about when I was putting the presentation together. Firstly, I stopped and I slowed down, and I started noticing that there were voices, there was conflict happening within me. So I expanded these voices in the audio channel. I then had that momentary flash vision of the forest. And then I followed that signal. It's like, wow, this is an interesting signal. It's not necessarily congruent with what is happening with me in dreamland and essence in this conflict, but let me follow this visual experience. And that was the forest. And then following that experience took me deeper into an essence level, a connected space of experience. I could also have chosen to work on, as I was facing that conflict, the audience and what I was experiencing, the pressure of having to do well and having to succeed, and how the audience was. And this would have been bringing in the world channel side of things. So I hope this gives a good idea of what I mean by these concepts. It's pretty challenging to explain them in a short amount of time. Sorry, I was just noticing the time. I think my watch battery has stopped. Okay, no, that is the time. Okay, so I need to fast forward a little bit. Yes, okay. All right, so the other thing that I want to point out about these experiences was both of these experiences took me from parts of myself that was known, that I was currently known. They took me into parts of myself and part of the relationship that were unknown. And this is the thing about signals. They have this capacity to do this, to bring us into new areas of ourselves. So conflict often happens between that which is known and unknown within ourselves, in relationships and in groups. Personal and collective growth really happens when we start exploring the edges between what we do and don't know, when we start tapping into and engaging with rejected or neglected parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that are trying to emerge. By exploring and navigating these edges through following signals, becoming aware of them, expanding them, we're starting to explore the relationship between the unknown and the known, and we're starting to deeper into the wholeness of our nature and the nature of those around us. Conflict and disturbances, when viewed from this perspective, are incredibly crucial. They are indicators of the dream body and the part of our wholeness that is being marginalized and needs to be brought in. So my question is, why wait for conflict to happen? Julie Diamond on her website, juliediamond.com, has a really great video on going into productive conflict. So why not consciously choose to go into conflict? You've got a project that you're working on, perhaps it's a grand eco-village design or something similar, like a creative project that you're working on with others. Instead of waiting for the conflict to happen, why not consciously sit down and go into the conflict? Create a space in which you can bring your ideas forward to the fullness, knowing that it's probably going to come into conflict with other people's ideas. And by being prepared and having a container to actually consciously go into this conflict, the conflict can become very productive. It can take us into diversity, presence in everyone, a diversity that is present in everyone there, and really deepen all our different ways of knowing, all our different ways of being present, all the different gifts that we are trying to bring to the project and to the solution. And by going into this productive conflict consciously, we can then start gleaming the wisdom in a way and in an environment that is less charged. So I'm just going to summarize quickly over here. Dreaming the dream on, exploring the edges of the known. Growth happens at edges. Conflicts and disturbances happen between levels of reality, between the known and the unknown. Signals and disturbances, conflicts, indicate marginalized and minority voices, both within ourselves and within groups. And by following these signals, we can go into the wisdom and get the wisdom from these and bring them into the totality of our experience, bring them into the new solutions that we find. And often these solutions and these wisdom may take us in completely new and unexpected directions in which everyone feels empowered. So how about the good stuff? You know, is it all about conflicts and disturbances? The dream body also speaks to us through more subtle signals, something that we call tendencies, flirts, and flickerings. And this can bring us into emerging parts of ourselves that are not necessarily all full of conflict and challenging and disturbing, but things that are lighter, things that are just trying to come forward, our leadership capacity maybe, or our deeper dreaming nature, our more artistic self. So this is where I talk about, or where I feel that we are starting to deepen into the unknown, and we have the potential to really deepen and be in the unknown. To give you an example of a flirt or a flicker, it might be something where you're just, walking in town, or you're walking through a forest and something specific catches your eye. It could be the way the light is shining on something. You can then focus on that light. It's like, what is it about that that's just caught my attention? Yes, it's beautiful, but is there something else about it? And I can really go into that and explore that, start seeing what does the light bring in for me? Where do I feel that light in my body? What does it do to my body? And as I deepen into that, it might expand into some deep and profound essence level of experience of a freshness, a newness, something new and fresh that wants to come into my life. And not only am I seeing it as this flicker, now that I've expanded it into my whole body, I'm actually feeling this freshness and this newness. And as I say this, I'll end up smiling because I'm talking about it and I'm just recording my excitement at sharing all of this. Again, we can choose to do this consciously. We can choose to follow tendencies, flickers, and flirts, these really subtle signals consciously. We don't have to wait for them to happen. We can look around a room with the eyes half over, half closed, just seeing what really catches our attention. You can ask yourself a question. Maybe you have a challenging problem. and look around the environment, not with your rational mind, but with your dream body experience. What draws you? And then go to that, expand it, unfold it. This is a way, again, of deepening into the unknown, going into a space where we don't know anything. Maybe just sitting for a while and being in that unknown and allowing the dream body and the wisdom of Gaia, the wisdom of nature, our interconnected nature, to actually bring a solution, bring an insight to us. So drawing this presentation to a close, I love the saying by Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I'm thinking now about all of these merging crises. The times are urgent. So many things are happening. We've created huge problems. We've created a lot of solutions, but there are a lot of crises. And how can we really tap into a different way of knowing? What does it mean to tap into a different way? How can we think differently about something when we don't even know how to think differently about something? How does that different look? So this is, for me, where awareness becomes crucial to the sustainability agenda. I just want to say over here that I view the term sustainability as an all-encompassing term for a number of different ideas, including regenerative thinking and regenerative system design. Bill Reed has this fantastic description of what a regenerative system is. It's humans participating as nature, co-evolution of the whole system. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we forge regenerative cultures that are participating as nature rather than separate with nature, that are co-evolving with nature rather than just simply doing and creating and putting stuff out there and thinking that we have all the answers and then hitting hopelessness when we realize that we don't? For me, using our awareness, so stopping, slowing down, using our awareness is a way in which we can design with nature. It's a point where we come into our interbeing, our interconnectedness with everything else, and we can tap into parts of ourselves that are unknown. We can tap into messages and stories and the greater flow of life that is happening around us and bring forward things. Awareness is also, for me, as a person having grown up in South Africa with my ancestry going back many, many, many decades, centuries back to Europe, it's how I can come back into contact with my native ways of knowing. I can't do this through my parents or my grandparents because they no longer know themselves. But I can do this by stepping in to my own deeper nature, by noticing these signals within myself. I can become aware of new things trying to emerge. I can become aware of my own innate intelligence. I can tap into the greater and deeper and longer and ancestral knowing of my time. The other thing about awareness and about following signals and following nature in the moment is that it's not a one-stop solution. We are constantly changing. Nature is constantly changing. And by maintaining an awareness of signals around us, by maintaining an awareness of the multiple levels of reality, by maintaining awareness of what is the least known thing to my identity and starting to work on that, I am able to dip into this flow and change of nature. It's kind of like maybe you know the symbol of the snake that eats its tail. I'm constantly regenerating my own way of being, which connects into nature's own regeneration of her way of being. So I think that's it. The times are urgent. Let's slow down. Thank you everyone for listening. And Giovanni, I hand back over now to you.
Well, thank you, Paola. What a fascinating subject. I am intrigued and really admire the way that you were able to put so many pieces together. It's a very complex piece, and but it showcases the importance of bringing awareness into to the sustainability paradigm. It reminded me very much of other studies that I've followed, shamanic studies particularly, the writings of Carlos Castañeda and the teachings of Don Juan and that sort of material. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, G, I am. And Arnold Mendel's work actually draws quite a bit and learns quite a bit from Carlos Castaneda. So the shamanic traditions have informed a lot of his work. The shamanic traditions, Taoism, all seed into what he has brought together in this process work paradigm.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Paola. I would like to invite the participants, if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to share with us, please put them in the chat box, and Paola will be with us a little bit longer to answer some of those questions. I'm sure that the presentation has brought up some curiosity and deeper thinking for many of you. The subject matter is very profound, of course, and it takes a long time of study to master it. So if anybody has any questions, and if you can find your chat box in your application, it's a little square box at the bottom of the screen. I'm sure you can see it. Or if you
perhaps while yeah, I'm just wondering, perhaps while people are thinking of the questions and getting them in, I'd like to draw attention to process work has a number of different ways and things that it does which fits into the sustainability agenda. This includes family and community healing. It includes world work, working on hot identity-based conflicts in Israel and Palestine. What I've brought specific awareness to over here, there's that word again, awareness, in this presentation is this underlying idea of awareness. It's something that kind of sews through all the different parts of process work and is kind of intrinsic to it. So I just want to frame that for those people that are interested in process work or have come to know process work from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So, okay, we have a comment, perhaps a question. Let me see. This is from Leticia. She says, "Thank you, Paola. Great presentation. I would love to see some book recommendations from you. I am a beginner in process work and currently reading Sitting on the Fire," which, by the way, I also just finished reading myself. And it's, wow, what a powerful book. So,
it is, yeah. It is a powerful book. I've just taken the presentation back to this references and further exploration. Arnold and Amy Mendel's website is over there. There's a website of Charles Eisenstein. Jan Dawkins is a process worker. Her website is great. She really articulates and speaks about things very simply. Julie Diamond, I've also got her website address over there. 4 books. I think Jan Dawkins has a blog on her website, but Arnold and Amy Mendel, Joe Goodbridge, Julie Diamond, these are just a few people that have written extensively on the subject of process work. For a beginner, a book by Julie Diamond and Lee Spark Jones that I highly recommend is one called The Path Made by Walking. Let me just write it in the chat box here. Path Made by Walking. It really covers the length and breadth of process work and all the different theories and ideas, and is great for someone who is just starting to explore the paradigm.
Great. So there is the title in the chat box, A Path Made by Walking.
Yeah, and that's Julie Diamond and Lee Spark Jones. There we go, that's also in the chat box. Amazon has a huge variety of books. If you just type in Arnold Mendel's name, all of the books will come up. For those people who are not living in areas where it's easy to get hold of his books, there are a number of Kindle and iBook copies of his books, so you can get them in digital format.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Leticia, and very nice to see you in our webinar. I don't see any other questions at the moment or any other comments. I don't know if people are thinking of some. How does this presentation relate to your understanding of sustainability? Um, I don't know if we can wait a little bit more for some questions, but in the meantime, let me just thank everybody for coming to the webinar towards awareness-oriented societies. This is a Gaia education program. This is our fourth webinar in a series. You can find our webinars, the other ones that we had. We had one on ecology, one on economy, and also one on worldview that you can look at our websites. Okay, Uri Mayer has also a comment. Thank you, Paola, and everybody. I wonder if you know or connected with Presencing Institute and Social Presencing Theater.
No, I haven't actually connected. No, and I don't know about it. I'm just taking a moment to think over here, because presencing brings something up for me, which is around focusing and becoming aware of kind of like the subtle tones of the different inner feeling experiences we have. And I don't know if this is the presencing that you're speaking about.
Uh-huh. I am familiar with the Presencing Institute, and as far as I know, it's linked with the U theory that Otto Schrammer has developed at MIT.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of the social presencing theater. It's fascinating. The title to me is fascinating because I come from a theater background and arts-based community in Mexico. So I will look into that. That sounds great. Udi, thank you for sharing that. He says that the images expressed about emerging movements like the Sankey, it seems relevant. Are you familiar with the Sankey movement, Paola?
I'm wondering if that's a typo, a typing mistake, and he actually, maybe Uri is referring to the movements of the snake. If you want to maybe say a little bit more, yeah, the cobra, there we go.
Sorry, I read it as it was typed.
Uri, maybe you can say a little bit more about the relevance that you were seeing.
Should we give Uri the microphone? Maybe he can speak with us.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So, Uri, your microphone is open if you want to speak a little bit about it.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Uri.
Yeah. I'm speaking slowly because I'm also watching over my child at the same time. So, yeah, I'm actually a practitioner of theater of the oppressed, and now more also dragon dreaming, and I came across social presencing theater. They did an online course about theory U, and now I'm exploring that as well. And basically, it theory U talks about the field, so it's a little bit like the Dreambody. And then the social presencing theater is a way of let's say showing your block, or let's say conflict in your body, and then through mindfulness also try to emerge a new movement, like a sort of emerging movement from that.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, that does sound very similar. No, a lot of these ideas they've been around for a while and have come up in different formats in different psychotherapeutic modalities. What I like about the way Arnold Mandel has drawn it together, and which appeals to me, is that it blends quantum physics. I haven't spoken much about the non-locality and entanglement theory that comes into his ideas. So it brings that together, kind of like the wisdom of the stories from New Science with shamanic traditions, with Jungian psychology. So for me personally, because this is I find all of these areas really fascinating, this is what has drawn me to that. So Yuri, thank you for bringing that in, and it's something I'm definitely going to look into, this social presence in theatre. I've been attending Theatre of the Oppressed goodies over here in Portland, and I'm finding it really powerful, a really powerful way to create social change and social shift. And this sounds very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It actually reminds me how in every EDE course, there is a little variation of what is being presented. So, for example, if locally you have people who are very steeped into the theater of the oppressed, that's a very good tool to teach about sustainability, about conflict resolution, about social awareness, etc. And in other areas, there are people with other tools that they can bring to the EDE. So just putting a little plug in here for the EDE courses, if there's one locally where you are, I strongly encourage you to look into it. And the curriculum covers many different aspects, but as I was saying, people in different areas have different resources to bring to the EDE courses. The slide that you see now, sorry, you were going to say something, Paola?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. I think that one of the real strengths of the EDE is that it brings in to the sustainability agenda. It's not only the triple bottom line of the social, economic, and ecological factors, but it brings in the worldview and the cultural aspects, which is our art, our creativity. And I feel that this in itself is hugely important in tapping into and acknowledging and becoming aware of our dreaming nature rather than marginalizing and putting it aside. And it's something that is very unique about the EDE approach and a huge strength of it. It's why EDE programs transform people, because it's not just about the consensus reality stuff. It really comes into the deeper layers and levels of being. And that anyone out there that hasn't done an EDE, it's a program that I really highly recommend for a transformative experience that shifts beyond known solutions and known ways of thinking about the current challenges that we are facing.
Great. You can find listings of EDEs on our website, by the way. If you go to gaiaeducation.net and you go to programs, you'll see if there is an EDE close to you or where there is one that you may want to join and travel to. I don't see any other questions, but I do want to mention that if you like this presentation and what you heard Paola talk about and other topics that we will be presenting, that we have already presented and will continue to present, please help us out with a small donation if you can, or direct other people to our website where they can also make a donation. We are a nonprofit organization with a very small budget, so we're doing a lot of this as you are, doing it with passion and commitment to our convictions. Gaia Education continues to do innovative programs, and we'll do another webinar in the summer. Hopefully it'll be one focused on the ecological dimension again. We already cycled once through the 4 dimensions that we offer, and we'll start a new cycle in the summer again. So thank you very much, Paola. Thank you everyone for participating. This will be recorded, so you can, if you missed anything, you can look at it again in the recording on our websites.
Thank